China continues its genocide and repression of predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and other religious minority groups. PRC continues to harass adherents of other religions that it deems out of line with Chinese Communist Party doctrine, including by destroying Buddhist, Christian, Islamic, and Taoist houses of worship, and by erecting barriers to employment and housing for Christians, Muslims, Tibetan Buddhists, and Falun Gong practitioners.
That was U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken earlier this month at the State Department when it issued its annual report on international religious freedom. Here with reaction is the former ambassador at large for international religious freedom, Sam Brownback, and he joins us from the International Religious Freedom Summit, which he's hosting this week here in Washington, D.C. Sam, thanks for making the time. You just heard the Secretary of State's comments there on religion in China. China still remains on the countries of particular concern list. But what does that really mean at this point?
Well, it doesn't mean enough because you're not seeing China change its tactics. We've got to start adding economic sanctions on these, Raymond. If we don't do that, if there aren't teeth with it, if there isn't a bite, it's just another set of words, and the Chinese will just say, it doesn't really mean anything, or it's just some sort of Western imperialism, or it's the Americans trying to hold us down, none of which is true. They are horrible on religious freedom. They are expanding religious persecution around the world, and they're inventing new techniques and high-tech ones to oppress people. They're the future of oppression.
It's unbelievable. Will they ever be held accountable, Sam, for the atrocities against religious minorities, particularly the Christians and the Uyghur Muslims and freedom fighters who happen to be Catholic, like Jimmy Lai?
Yeah, Jimmy. Well, and what about arresting the Cardinal of Hong Kong?
Right.
Cardinal Zen, that is really an unbelievable, an 80-year-old cardinal that you're arresting. I fear that near term they won't be held accountable, but they need to, and we need to make a big case out of this because they also enable human rights abuses around the world. So anybody else that's a human rights abuser, China will and welcome into their economy. Look what they did to Russia to back Russia in the Ukrainian invasion. The Chinese were the puppet master behind the Russians on this.
Yep. You're absolutely right. We'll be talking in a bit to Nigerian Bishop Jude Arogundade in our next segment about that terrible situation in his country. But as you know, Nigeria was removed from the list of countries of particular concern last year, which is puzzling considering the number of terrorist attacks against Christians there, Ambassador. A State Department official met with Bishop Jude recently. Your thoughts on this, and was there anything new in that recent report addressing the crisis in Nigeria?
Well, it is a crisis. They deserve to be on the list as a country of particular concern. They deserve economic sanctions for what's taking place. And until you really press the Nigerian government on this, they are not going to protect their own community. And you're going to see more of this killing. You saw 2 priests killed this last weekend. You saw 41 Catholics in this one church were slaughtered and gunned down on a Sunday. That's going to continue to happen unless you really press the Nigerian government. They need to be a CPC country, and there needs to be economic sanctions associated with that towards Nigeria.
Yeah, I agree. Secretary Blinken singled out China, Burma, Myanmar, Eritrea, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India as countries exhibiting significant problems regarding religious freedom. What are you hearing on the ground at this year's summit?
That those problems are significant, they're real, and they're happening. I even met with a group of Sikhs from India and the Pakistan area, and they're getting persecuted in India, and that's where they originally came from. And you're really hearing it on a broad cross-section of people. The Christians are, if you've got a Christian missionary group, a number of them are getting kicked out of India. You saw Mother Teresa's organization in India was originally, they took their bank account away. Now they've reinstated it after international pressure. But Mother Teresa of Calcutta, you're cutting her bank account out so she can't take care of the poor. I really don't understand why the Modi government is doing this so hard on. And this is a place, India's been a subcontinent for years, has been very fair towards other people of other faiths. They have 4 major religions came out of the Indian subcontinent itself. So they've been really good about it. But this Hindu nationalism has really taken a hard edge the wrong way, I think.
But Ambassador, this is a prime example of a situation where the United States could exert real pressure and have a positive result, why aren't we insisting on human and religious rights in places like India? That's a major trading partner with the United States.
You know, I really think it's because of our focus on China, and I am for us focusing on China, and we're saying, you know, India is our major counterweight that we're supporting, but you don't give your friends just a pass on human rights just because they're an ally of yours. That's a long-term recipe, I think, for a really poor, imbalanced relationship. I think we have to go to India and say, yes, we want to work with you against China, and yes, you have to stand for religious freedom and human rights. You're a democracy like we're a democracy. Right. You have to stand for these things, and I think, honestly, you can play that tension, and there's some tension with it, but I think we have to be true to ourselves and really true to leading the world on human rights, which the United States always has.
Before we run out of time, I have to get your take on these recent Supreme Court rulings that could affect religious freedom here at home and really into the near future. The main school voucher system can no longer exclude funding for religious schools, and our earlier guest, Coach Joe Kennedy, scored a victory for this sideline prayer following public high school football games in Washington State. How important were these rulings vis-a-vis freedom of speech and religion here in the United States?
I think they were critical. You're finally seeing the pendulum start to move back just a little bit on the free exercise clause. Before, the court always just looked at the establishment clause and said, oh, it's the establishment clause, you can't do that. Now they're saying, well, wait, there's a free exercise part of this. You can freely exercise, and that was the win in Kennedy. And this one on the main school case, I think really one of the key things we have to do in the future is allow children to pick the school, children, I'm saying K-12 and their parents, pick the school and have the money follow the child, which that case helps open us up a route to be able to do that, which would be critically important to the future of this country.
Yeah, well, we will leave it there. Mr. Ambassador, I thank you. To find out more on the International Religious Freedom Summit, visit irfsummit.org. Sam, thank you.